a special at-home edition of Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you with some breaking news on this Saturday afternoon. The Seattle Seahawks have narrowed down their roster to 80 before Tuesday's deadline. Let's go ahead and tell you who those players are that the Seahawks have ultimately moved on from. It includes defensive back Bubba Bolden, tight end Cade Brewer, as well as linebacker Matthew Gotel and defensive back Elijah Jones. They were all waived. Meanwhile, linebacker Joel Iyiegbuniwe was cut. And the team has also hosted veteran linebacker Kenny Young on a free agent visit. We'll tell you more about Kenny Young in just a second. We'll start out with the guys the Seahawks ultimately moved on from. Now, the Seahawks making these moves, to me, there's two of them that stand out in particular. Let's start out with linebacker Joel Iyiegbuniwe. He was somebody that the Seahawks brought in back in the early part of free agency. And he was somebody that was expected to compete for one of those roster spots in the linebacker position. And the surprise to me wasn't necessarily that he was cut, but the fact that he was cut this early in the process was still the 53-man roster cut coming. I thought that he would at least get to that point. The Seahawks apparently, though, have seen enough to already go ahead and move on from him, the veteran linebacker formerly with the Chicago Bears. Meanwhile, with Bubba Bolden getting waived, what's interesting about Bolden being let go is his path to get to the NFL. Just a couple years ago, he was a second-team All-ACC performer out of Miami, and there was a belief that this guy could be a day two pick, potentially, just a few years ago. But he's dealt with so many injuries, and it looked like he was starting to make that comeback, and there was a chance that he could make that 53-man roster, that maybe the Seahawks found a steal in Bubba Bolden, but ultimately that was not the case. They did not feel like that he was going to be good enough to make that 53-man roster, so they let go of him now. So for Bubba Bolden, it was one of those situations for the Seahawks where it was potential chance for a good reward that didn't cost you much, an undrafted free agent with a lot of potential, but ultimately they didn't see fit. So there you have it. The roster moves a little bit early with the deadline coming on Tuesday, but the Seahawks go ahead and make these moves now. So how would you grade the moves that the Seahawks made? Moving on from Bolden, Brewer, and Jones, and Iyiegbuniwe and Gotel. How would you grade the decision by the Seahawks to make these roster moves here on this Saturday? A, B, C, D, or F? What type of grade would you put on it? Let me know in the comments section below how you would grade these moves from the Seahawks. Do you like it? Do you love it? Type A, B, C, D, or F. How you would grade the roster cuts from the Seahawks to narrow down this roster from 85 to 80. Folks, this is why you subscribe to Seahawks Today. Even on my off day, I was just getting out of the swimming pool, showered and everything, and all of a sudden we have breaking Seattle Seahawks news, and we weren't going to wait till we got back in studio tomorrow to get you this update. Had to give this to you now. That's what we do. That's why we love what we do here on Seahawks Today, is to get you the latest news and rumors no matter where we're at. On the weekend, the off day, doesn't matter. Always find a way to keep you guys up to speed with what's going on with your favorite team. Subscribe now. We're closing in on 28,000 subscribers on the channel, but we need your help to get there. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe now. Tell your friends. Make sure they're subscribed as well, as we cover your favorite team each and every day here on Seattle Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. Turn on the notifications as well and join the Noted Gang. All right, next up, let's talk about Kenny Young now. The Seahawks bring him on a free agent visit, and just a few days ago, he was cut by the Las Vegas Raiders. Here's his backstory. He was cut by the Raiders recently and spent 2021 with both the Rams and the Broncos. He was traded mid-season last year for a 2024 sixth-round pick. He was involved in that Von Miller trade. That's what sent him to the Broncos last year after being in Los Angeles from 2019 to 2021. Originally played for the Baltimore Ravens in 2018-2019, was drafted by them in the 4th round in 2018, pick 122. Coming out of college at UCLA, he was an all Pac-12 selection first team in 2017. Meanwhile, in 2016, he was a second team all Pac-12 player. The statistics on Kenny Young so far in his career: 184 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 1 interception, 4 pass deflections, and 1 defensive touchdown. All those career statistics, if that were the numbers for one season, that would be great. Problem is with Kenny Young, that's his numbers for his entire career. So Kenny Young, I mean, it might be a different, it's a different option compared to Iyiegbuniwe, but I don't think it's much of an upgrade. I mean, there's a reason why the Raiders moved on from him as well. So if the Seahawks want to sign him, I mean, we'll see. But to me, that's one where he's had opportunities with multiple teams and has yet to impress, yet to break out. I don't know why that would be any different in Seattle, but again, that's why this time of year is a time for experiments. See if you find something, see what you got. If not, you move on elsewhere. So we'll see if the Seahawks ultimately bring in Kenny Young or not. So weigh in. Tell me in the comments section. Should the Seahawks sign Kenny Young? Is this something they should do? Let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes. Type in for no if the Seahawks should bring in Kenny Young. It wouldn't cost them much. I know that he has not looked great in his career at this point, but, I mean, it's not going to hurt you, I think, if you give Kenny Young a shot personally. I would vote yes on this. I mean, you don't have anything to lose necessarily, but should they give him a shot? Let me know in the comments section. Y for yes, N for no on if they should move on from Kenny Young. Now, before we go, here's something I want to think about, folks. If you look at the timings, this is an interesting thing for me that stood out of the moves that the Seahawks made. They didn't wait around, right? We knew the roster cuts from 90 to 85, what was it, a day or two early before they needed to of that deadline, and it was shortly after the preseason game against the Steelers. And then here we are, today's Saturday, the Seahawks played on Thursday, and the Seahawks made their decision pretty fast when it came to the guys that they were going to move on from before the deadline coming up on Tuesday of next week. So what that tells me is the Seahawks are really valuing the game tape that they're seeing, that they're reacting to that very quickly, that they value what they see on that game tape there, that the game tape matters. So if you're looking at these position battles, something to keep in mind is the tape don't lie, that what you're seeing in the preseason is getting heavy attention for John Schneider and Pete Carroll. And that's not the case necessarily with every team. Take example, let's say the Carolina Panthers. On Friday night in their preseason game, they have a quarterback competition, right, between Mayfield and Darnold. And Mayfield and Darnold didn't even play in that second preseason game for Carolina. And so the belief is that they're, with Matt Rule's team, that they are really focused in on what's going in on practice, that's determining their position battles. I'm not saying there's a right way, one way or the other. I mean, every team is different. But something to keep in mind when you're watching the preseason game against the Cowboys here in a couple days, what goes on there, what you're seeing, what stands out to you, that's what the coaches are seeing too. The games do matter to an extent. They do. And it seems like that the coaching staff and general management has put an importance to these preseason games based on the timing of how these cuts have gone from the film that's out there into the moves they've made. So something to think about there with how the Seahawks operate, maybe compared to another team like the Carolina Panthers. I thought that was an interesting observation. So with that, we will go. Thanks for joining us on this special edition of Seahawks Today. I'll be back in studio tomorrow. I'll shave. I'll get all cleaned up. Don't worry about it. Okay. We'll have a fun show tomorrow in studio with the latest Seahawks news and rumors. That's why you subscribe to the channel. Before we go, name a player the Seahawks should cut. With the roster now going from 80 to 53 for the next round of cuts, who should be the next to go? Let me know in the comments section. Name one player that should go. Subscribe to the channel for the latest Seahawks news and rumors. each and every day here on Seattle Seahawks Today, youtube.com/SeahawksTV. We'll see you next time.